Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine a world just teeming with these colossal creatures. Steamy jungles, warm seas, the Mesozoic era, right? The age of
Yes,
dinosaurs.
stretching way back 253 to about 66 million years ago.
Yeah.
It's just mind-boggling, the scale of it.
It really is. It sparks this immediate sense of wonder, doesn't it?
Totally. And what's really striking is just how different that world was. I mean, almost alien compared to Earth today.
Exactly. And, to help us explore this ancient time, we're actually diving into the transcript from that Dynabest YouTube video.
Mm.
3 hours of stunning prehistoric dinosaur facts to fall asleep to. The Extinction.
Right, using that as our sort of guide through this lost world.
Think of it like our blueprint for a time machine journey.
And it's more than just, listing cool dinosaur names. This whole exploration, it's about understanding the big picture of life's history. Evolution in action.
And how these ancient giants still kind of echo today.
Precisely. So our mission here is really to dig into the most fascinating parts of dinosaur life, where they came from, how incredibly diverse they were, and, well, how it all ended.
A shortcut, maybe, to getting a real handle on these prehistoric titans?
Hopefully. So where do we start? Before the dinosaurs really took over, what was happening? What set the stage?
Well, yeah, it wasn't like they just appeared out of nowhere, was it?
Not at all.
Yeah.
You have to look back at the end Permian extinction. It was catastrophic, probably the biggest mass extinction ever.
Wiped out something like 90% of life.
Huge numbers, yeah. But crucially, it cleared out a lot of ecological niches. Like, imagine a crowded city suddenly having loads of empty apartments.
Okay, creating opportunities.
Exactly. And reptiles, including this group called archosaurs, the ancestors of dinosaurs, crocodiles, pterosaurs, they were really well positioned to take advantage. They stepped into those empty niches.
So a massive extinction actually paved the way. It sounds kind of counterintuitive.
It does. But that's often how evolution works. Big disruptions create new opportunities. And from these archosaurs, eventually we get the first true dinosaurs, around, say, 240 million years ago.
And these first ones, they weren't the huge ones we usually picture.
No, not yet. Mostly small, quick, bipedal creatures. Think Eoraptor or Herrerasaurus, kind of the early prototypes. They had the basic dinosaur toolkit.
And what was the key thing, this sort of killer app that set them apart?
The big one was their hip structure. They evolved this upright stance with their legs directly underneath their body, not sprawling out to the sides like, lizards or older reptiles.
Ah, okay, so they walked more like mammals or birds.
Exactly. And that meant they could move more efficiently, faster, maybe had more stamina. It was a really significant advantage, a revolutionary change, really.
Right, standing tall, moving efficiently. That makes sense. And did that lead to them diversifying pretty quickly?
Oh, yeah, they really took off. By the Jurassic period, maybe 150 million years ago, they were diversifying rapidly and becoming the dominant land animals everywhere.
What fueled that success? Just the hips, or other things too?
It was a combination. The efficient postures, sure, but also evolving different anatomies for different jobs, adapting to various diets, plants, meat, insects, and just being incredibly adaptable to changing environments.
So if you were like a time-traveling biologist, how would you spot a dinosaur versus just some other big reptile back then?
Good question. Well, the upright stance is key. Then there's the classification based on those hip structures, the Seritia and Ornithischia, which we can get into.
Okay.
They also developed more advanced teeth through different diets, unlike the simpler peg-like teeth of many other reptiles. And maybe the most exciting part, there's a lot of evidence suggesting many were warm-blooded, or at least had higher metabolisms than typical cold-blooded reptiles.
Warm-blooded dinosaurs. That still kind of blows my mind. Okay, so let's get into those two big groups you mentioned, Seritia and Ornithischia.
Right. So Serischia means lizard-hipped, even though, confusingly, it's the group that includes the ancestors of birds. This group splits into two main types, the theropods and the sauropodomorphs.
Theropods, those are the famous ones, right? The meat eaters.
Mostly, yeah. Your classic bipedal carnivores. Think T-Rex, Velociraptor, Allosaurus. They typically had hollow bones, makes them lighter, and those distinctive three-toed feet.
And the bird connection?
This is the lineage. Modern birds evolved directly from small, feathered theropods. It's just incredible.
Okay.
Every pigeon you see is technically a dinosaur.
That never gets old. So theropods, were they all huge predators?
Huge variation. You tiny ones like Compsognathus,
Yeah.
barely chicken-sized, and then giants like Spinosaurus,
Oh, right.
possibly even bigger than T-Rex. And diets varied too, not just predators. Some were scavengers, some maybe ate plants or fish.
And feathers. We hear a lot about feathered dinosaurs now.
Definitely. We have clear fossil evidence of feathers on many theropods. Probably started for insulation, maybe display, and only later adapted for flight in the lineage leading to birds.
Okay, fierce, fast, and possibly fluffy. Got it. What about the other Saurischian group? Sauropodomorphs.
Sauropodomorphs, yeah, a bit of a mouthful. These were the giants, the massive long-necked four-legged herbivores. Brachiosaurus, Diplodocus, Argentinosaurus, the largest land animals ever.
How did they even support that much weight?
Amazing adaptations. Those super long necks for reaching high foliage,
Yeah.
huge digestive systems, possibly with gastroliths, stomach stones to grind up tough plants.
Gastroliths, like birds swallowing grit.
Exactly the same principle. They also had surprisingly lightweight, hollow bones for their size, and pillar-like legs straight under the body. Plus, evidence suggests they moved in herds, maybe migrating for food.
Just immense. Vegetarians ruling the landscape. Okay, that's the Saurischians. What about the Ornithischians, the bird-hipped ones?
Right, the Ornithischia. Ironically, not the ancestors of birds, despite the name referring to their bird-like hip structure. This is a really diverse group, mostly herbivores.
So who's in this club?
You've got the armored dinosaurs like Stegosaurus with its plates and Ankylosaurus with its club tail. You've got the horned dinosaurs like Triceratops and the duck-billed dinosaurs,
Yeah.
the Hadrosaurs.
Wow, yeah, lots of familiar names there too. So a totally different set of designs.
Totally different body plans. But sharing that fundamental Ornithischian hip structure, they filled all sorts of plant-eating roles, from heavily defended browsers to maybe more agile grazers, shows incredible adaptability.
Okay, so two main branches, tons of variety. Let's get into how they actually lived. What were they eating and how?
Well, for the herbivores, lots of strategies. The big sauropods were probably high browsers, like giraffes reaching the treetops.
Make sense with those snacks?
Then you had hadrosaurs, the duckbills, with these amazing batteries of hundreds of teeth, perfect for grinding up tougher vegetation, maybe lower down.
Like cows of the Cretaceous.
Sort of, yeah.
Huh?
Very efficient processors. And smaller ornithischians might have been more selective foragers, nipping specific plants.
Specialized tools for the job. What about the carnivores, the theropods? Beyond just sharp teeth?
Sharp, often serrated teeth, yeah. Powerful jaws, definitely. But also likely keen senses, good eyesight, maybe a great sense of smell, judging by their brain cavities.
So they could find prey effectively.
Right. And how they hunted probably varied. Some might have been ambush predators, some pursuit predators, some might have hunted alone, others maybe in packs. We see trackways suggesting group movement in some theropods.
Pack hunting raptors. That's a scary thought.
It is. And then you get really unique cases like Spinosaurus. Evidence suggests it was semi-aquatic, spending a lot of time in water, maybe using that long snout and conical teeth to catch fish, possibly even using its sail for displaying or stability in water.
A swimming dinosaur. The variety is just stunning. What about social lives? Did they hang out together?
We have some pretty good clues. Bone beds, huge accumulations of fossils from many individuals of the same species in one place, strongly suggest herding behavior. Dinosaur National Monument is a famous example.
So safety in numbers.
Probably. We also find trackways with multiple sets of prints heading in the same direction, suggesting group travel. And communal nesting sites, especially in places like Mongolia, show multiple nests close together.
Wow, nesting grounds. Does that mean they cared for their young? Like dinosaur parents?
It seems likely, at least for some. We find fossils of theropods, like oviraptor relatives, sitting on nests in a brooding posture, just like birds, protecting the eggs, keeping them warm.
Amazing preservation.
It really is.
Yeah.
And with hadrosaurs, finding nesting grounds with eggs, hatchlings, and juveniles of different sizes suggests they might have had communal care, maybe staying near the nests for a while.
Like a dinosaur daycare?
Possibly. But other dinosaurs might have been more like sea turtles, lay the eggs and leave. Hatchlings fend for themselves. So probably a whole spectrum of parenting styles.
Fascinating. How did they communicate? Was it all just roaring like in the movies?
Probably not just roaring, likely a mix of things. We can infer potential for vocalizations from inner ear structures and comparisons with birds and crocodiles. Some theropods might have had complex bird-like calls,
Okay, that was
but also visual signals. Think about the crests on hadrosaurs, the horns and frills on ceratopsians, maybe plates on stegosaurs, or even feathers. These could have been for display, species recognition, attracting mate.
like elaborate costumes.
Exactly. And don't forget smell. Many dinosaurs had large olfactory bulbs in their brains, suggesting a good sense of smell, which could have been used for communication marking territory, finding mates, detecting danger.
Right, a whole sensory world we can only guess at. Okay, let's talk biology basics. How did these massive animals manage energy? Warm-blooded, cold-blooded, somewhere in between.
Still a big debate for many groups. Large animals like sauropods have a high volume to surface area ratio, so they'd retain heat. Well, maybe they didn't need super high metabolisms. They might have relied partly on gigantothermy, just being big.
So size itself helped regulate temperature.
To an extent, yeah. They might have still needed to bask sometimes, or find ways to shed excess heat. Smaller, more active dinosaurs, especially many theropods leading toward birds, show bone structures suggesting faster growth rates and potentially higher, more bird-like metabolisms, likely warm-blooded or close to it.
So maybe a mix of strategies across the different groups.
Probably the most likely scenario. Not one size fits all, dependent on size, lifestyle, climate.
And their structure, you mentioned hollow bones earlier, even in big theropods, that seems weird for strength.
It's brilliant engineering. Like bird bones today, hollow with internal struts, provides amazing strength for the weight, crucial for large size, and, in theropods, agility. Also linked to that advanced respiratory system we'll get to.
Okay, lightweight but strong. And their legs being under the body.
Yeah, that pillar-like support was way more efficient for carrying weight and moving than legs sprawling out sideways. You see variations too thick, sturdy legs for sauropods, long, slender legs for fast runners, adapted for different needs.
It all seems so optimized. What about inside? Hearts, lungs, powering these giants.
Based on birds and crocodiles, their closest living relatives, dinosaurs likely had efficient cardiovascular systems. Probably a four-chambered heart, separating oxygenated and deoxygenated blood, allowing for higher activity levels.
Like mammals and birds today.
Exactly. And the respiratory system. This is really cool. Evidence suggests many dinosaurs, especially saurischians, had air sacs connected to their lungs, similar to birds.
Air sacs. How does that work?
It allows for a one-way flow of air through the lungs. Unlike our in and out breathing, they could extract oxygen much more efficiently, both inhaling and exhaling. It's key for supporting high metabolisms and large body sizes, and it also helped lighten the skeleton as the sacs invaded the bones.
Wow, a super efficient breathing system. Okay, one last biology bit. How fast did they grow and how long did they live?
We can actually tell a surprising amount from looking at fossil bones under a microscope. They often have growth rings, like tree rings.
Seriously, you can count the rings.
Yeah. These lines of arrested growth, or AGs, show pauses in growth, maybe seasonal. By counting them and measuring bone density between them, we can estimate age and track growth rates.
And what does that tell us?
It shows some dinosaurs, especially larger ones, grew incredibly fast when young. Reaching adult size quickly could be a strategy to avoid predation. It also gives clues about their metabolism and potential lifespans, which varied hugely between species.
Amazing detail from just bones. Okay, let's zoom out. What kind of world did they live in? What were their habitats like?
Hugely varied, because the Mesozoic lasted so long and continents were moving around. You had everything from lush, warm, humid forests full of ferns, cycads, ginkgos, and early conifers.
The classic dinosaur jungle image.
Right. But also drier, more arid regions, vast plains, coastal areas, river systems. Brachiosaurus might be in the forest, Velociraptor may be in denser undergrowth, Triceratops on open plains, Spinosaurus hanging out by the rivers. Different dinosaurs adapted to different settings.
And the climate wasn't stable either, right?
Definitely not. Over 160 million years, the Earth saw big climate shifts, generally warmer than today, often much wetter, but also periods of cooling or increased dryness. Dinosaurs had to adapt.
How did they cope?
Through evolution, adapting their size, body shape, maybe skin coverings, feathers for insulation in cooler spots, perhaps, different reproductive strategies, maybe migrating to follow favorable conditions.
And the plants you mentioned, ferns, cycads. What was the menu like for herbivores?
For a long time, gymnosperms dominated. Those conifers, cycads, ginkgos, no flowers, mostly tougher foliage. Then, later in the Cretaceous, angiosperms, flowering plants appeared and started diversifying. That was a huge change.
Did that change the dinosaurs too?
Likely did. The rise of angiosperms might have favored herbivores that could process these new, perhaps faster-growing or more nutritious plants, like the hadrosaurs with their complex teeth. It created new ecological opportunities.
And the dinosaurs must have impacted the plants right back.
Oh, absolutely. Imagine herds of giant sauropods munching through forests. That intense grazing pressure would drive plants to evolve defenses, tough leaves, thorns, spines, maybe even chemical toxins.
An evolutionary arms race.
Exactly. And conversely, as flowering plants evolved, some might have co-evolved with herbivores, maybe using fruits to encourage seed dispersal. A constant interaction.
What about nutrient cycling? All that eating must have had an effect.
A huge effect. Herbivores eat plants, digest them, and then, well, their droppings return nutrients to the soil. Dinosaur manure on a massive scale, fertilizing the landscape, supporting more plant growth, a vital part of the ecosystem engine.
Giants fueling the whole system. Were there any weird, isolated dinosaur ecosystems, like on islands?
Yes. Island evolution can lead to strange things. Limited resources or lack of predators on islands can cause mainland species to evolve differently. We see evidence of insular dwarfism, giant dinosaurs becoming smaller on islands, and sometimes insular gigantism, where smaller animals become larger. Unique evolutionary paths.
Dwarf T-Rexes, or giant raptors.
Maybe not exactly those, but things like dwarf sauropods have been found. Evolution gets creative in isolation.
Nature's laboratories. Did dinosaurs tend to stick to one area, or did they move around a lot? Migrate.
Evidence points strongly towards migration, especially for larger herbivores. Those trackways we mentioned often show large groups moving purposefully in one direction, sometimes for hundreds of miles.
Why move?
Probably following the seasons, searching for fresh vegetation, water sources, or maybe moving to specific nesting grounds. Much like large animal migrations today, like wildebeest in Africa. It suggests social coordination, too.
A world constantly in motion. Okay, this brings us to the big one, the end. What happened? How did this incredible reign end?
The leading theory, and there's a ton of evidence for it, is the asteroid impact. About 66 million years ago, a massive asteroid, maybe 6 miles wide, slammed into the Earth off the coast of modern-day Mexico.
The Chicxulub crater.
That's the one. The immediate impact would have been unbelievable.
Yeah.
Huge blast wave, intense heat pulse causing global wildfires, massive earthquakes, tsunamis sweeping inland for miles, just unimaginable devastation.
Give it worst disaster movie imaginable, but real.
And that was just the start. The real killer was likely the aftermath.
What happened next?
The impact threw colossal amounts of dust, soot, and sulfur into the atmosphere, blocking sunlight possibly for months or even years. A global impact winter.
No sun means.
Plants die. Photosynthesis stops. The entire food chain collapses, starting with the herbivores and then the carnivores that ate them. Plus, acid rain from the sulfur would have poisoned waterways and land. It was a planetary catastrophe.
Just devastating. Was the asteroid the only factor, though? I've heard about volcanoes, too.
Yeah, that's a really important part of the story. Around the same time, there were massive, prolonged volcanic eruptions happening in India, the Deccan Traps.
Deccan Traps,
Yeah.
right. How did they contribute?
These weren't just single volcanoes. It was a vast area spewing lava and, crucially, enormous amounts of volcanic gases, carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, over maybe hundreds of thousands of years.
So more climate chaos.
Exactly. The gases would have caused significant climate change, potentially initial warming from CO2, more acid rain from sulfur, polluting the air and water. It put ecosystems under immense stress before the asteroid hit.
So it might have been a double whammy, a 1-2 punch.
That's the thinking for many scientists now. The planet and its ecosystems were already stressed. Maybe some dinosaur populations were already declining because of the volcanic activity and climate shifts. And then, bam, the asteroid impact delivered the knockout blow.
Makes sense. A fragile system hit by an overwhelming catastrophe. But not all dinosaurs died out, did they?
That's a crucial point. One group survived, the birds. They are direct descendants of theropod dinosaurs.
So in a way, dinosaurs are still with us. Flying around, singing in our gardens.
Absolutely. The non-avian dinosaurs went extinct, but the avian dinosaurs made it through, likely because smaller size, feathers for insulation, possibly different diets or faster reproduction helped them survive the aftermath. It means the age of dinosaurs never truly ended.
That's an amazing twist. So how do we actually know all this stuff? How do scientists piece together this incredible story from so long ago?
It all comes down to fossils. Preserved bones, teeth, footprints, skin impressions, eggs, even fossilized poop coprolites. They're the direct evidence.
Reading the bones.
Pretty much. But context is everything. Where a fossil is found, the type of rock, the layers above and below that tells you about its age and the environment it lived in. Stratigraphy, the study of rock layers, is key.
So finding the fossil is just the start.
Oh yeah. Then comes the careful excavation, preparation in the lab, and analysis. Paleontologists use comparative anatomy, comparing fossil bones to each other and to modern animals to figure out relationships and how they might have worked.
What about dating them? How do we know they're 66 million years old, not 100?
Radiometric dating is the workhorse there. By measuring the decay of radioactive isotopes in volcanic layers associated with the fossils, we can get pretty precise ages for when those rocks formed, bracketing the age of the fossils within them.
And technology, is that changing how we study fossils?
Massively. CT scanners let us look inside fossils without cutting them open, revealing brain cavities, inner ears, air passages, and bones. Computer modeling helps us reconstruct muscles, figure out how they moved, how strong their bite was. It's a whole new level of insight.
Bringing them back to life digitally, are there any specific fossils that were just game changers for our understanding?
Definitely. Archaeopteryx is the classic example. Found in the 1860s, it had feathers like a bird but teeth and a bony tail like a reptile. A beautiful transitional fossil showing that bird-dinosaur link.
The smoking gun for the bird connection.
Pretty much. And finding nearly complete skeletons like Sue, the T-Rex, gives us incredible detail about one individual injury's disease's growth. Then there are finds like feathered dinosaurs from China that revolutionized our image of theropods.
So each discovery adds a piece to the puzzle. How has all this fossil knowledge impacted our view of, well, life itself?
Fundamentally, it's provided overwhelming evidence for evolution, showing how life changes over vast timescales. It's revealed entire lost worlds and ecosystems far stranger than we could have imagined. It informs geology, climate science. It connects us to deep time.
It really puts our own existence in perspective. Now, dinosaurs are huge in popular culture. Movies, books, toys. Why are we still so obsessed?
They're just inherently awesome, aren't they? Giant, powerful, alien-looking creatures that actually existed. They represent the ultimate other, a lost world that sparks imagination, especially for kids. They tap into that sense of wonder and maybe a little bit of fear.
Jurassic Park definitely played a big role there. But how accurate are movies like that?
Well, they're amazing entertainment, but scientific accuracy often takes a backseat to drama. Things like the featherless raptors, the Dilophosaur's neck frill and spitting, those are mostly movie inventions. But they get people interested, which is great.
So a gateway to the real science.
Hopefully. And our scientific understanding changes too. The way dinosaurs are depicted in art has evolved massively. Early paintings showed them as slow, tail-dragging lizards.
Right, the old swamp-dwelling brontosaurus image.
Exactly. Now, thanks to more evidence, paleoartists depict them as much more active, dynamic, often feathered, working closely with scientists to get the posture, muscles, and environment right. It's a blend of science and art.
That collaboration sounds fascinating. What about media responsibility? Should documentaries and news be careful about accuracy?
Absolutely. Popular media shapes public perception hugely. It's important to reflect current scientific understanding, show the diversity, mention the bird connection, maybe even highlight the ongoing discoveries. It can inspire scientific curiosity.
It connects to that idea in the Dino Dust source about indigenous perspectives too, right? Finding giant bones must have sparked stories long before paleontology.
Definitely. Cultures all over the world have myths and legends that likely originated from finding fossil bones. Dragons in China, the Cyclops in Greece, perhaps inspired by mammoth skulls, giants' bones in Europe, creation beings in Aboriginal Australia. People were trying to make sense of these incredible remains within their own worldview.
Wow, so paleontology is kind of rediscovering things people wondered about for centuries. How do museums fit into this? How do they make dinosaurs accessible?
Museums are crucial. They curate the actual fossils, tell the stories behind the discoveries, create life-size reconstructions that just inspire awe. They use interactive exhibits, digital tech, great artwork to engage everyone from kids to adults. They make the science tangible and exciting.
Bringing the bones to the people. So even though they're gone, their legacy is huge. We mentioned birds as living dinosaurs. That's the biggest one, right?
Without a doubt. It's the most direct evolutionary legacy. So many features we see in birds' feathers, hollow bones, wishbones, nesting behavior, maybe even their breathing system, have roots deep in their theropod ancestors. Archaeopteryx and other feathered fossils beautifully illustrate that transition.
It really reframes how you look at birds. Are there other living relatives that help us understand dinosaurs? Crocodiles?
Crocodilians are cousins, yeah. Both birds and crocs belong to the Archosaur group, along with dinosaurs. So crocs aren't direct descendants, but as relatively closely related archosaurs, studying their anatomy, physiology, behavior like nesting, parental care, how they move, can give us comparative clues about plausible dinosaur biology and behavior. They're like a living reference point, albeit a more distant one than birds.
So studying the whole family tree helps, and technology is pushing this forward all the time.
Constantly. CT scanning we mentioned. Laser scanning creates precise 3D surface models. Molecular paleontology is trying to extract ancient proteins, maybe even DNA fragments, though dinosaur DNA is probably too degraded. But proteins can survive longer and give clues about relationships.
Proteins instead of DNA.
Yeah, collagen fragments, for instance, have been tentatively identified in some really old fossils, including dinosaurs. It's controversial, but incredibly exciting if confirmed and expanded. And digital modeling lets us test biomechanics. How fast could T-Rex run? How did sauropods hold their necks?
Virtually reconstructing them. And paleogenomics, studying ancient DNA, even if not from dinosaurs, it must be revolutionizing study of more recent extinct animals.
Oh, absolutely. For things like mammoths, cave bears, Neanderthals, ancient DNA is revealing incredible detail about their evolution, population history, even diseases. It sets a benchmark for what might eventually possible older material, even if dinosaur DNA itself is a long shot.
So despite all this tech and discovery, are there still big mysteries? Things we just don't know about dinosaurs?
Loads. We're still debating the finer points of metabolism for many groups. The exact colors of most dinosaurs. Mostly guesswork, though some pigment traces have been found in feathers. The full complexity of their social lives, their communication methods, did they sing like birds? Use scent signals extensively? And the precise interplay of causes for the extinction, we know the big players, but the detailed domino effect is still being worked out.
Plenty left for future paleontologists to figure out, and our whole image of them keeps changing, doesn't it?
Radically, from those slow, gray, scaly beasts to active, potentially colorful, feathered, complex animals. Driven by new fossils, especially from places like China, and new ways of analyzing them, it's a much more dynamic and frankly interesting picture now.
More bird-like, less lizard-like in many ways. What about speculative ideas? Pushing the boundaries based on what we do know.
Well, scientists speculate about things like the intelligence of certain dinosaurs, especially troodontids and dromaeosaurs with relatively large brains. Could they have had complex problem-solving skills or social structures? What unique adaptations might some have evolved that we haven't found evidence for yet? It fuels new research questions.
Keeps the imagination going. And that accuracy in media question comes up again, making sure portrayals keep up with the science.
It's a challenge. Science moves fast. But trying to incorporate things like feathers where appropriate, showing more dynamic behavior, reflecting the diversity beyond just the famous few, it helps give a richer, more accurate public understanding.
Are there ethical issues in paleontology too, beyond just digging carefully?
Sure, fossil preservation is key. They're irreplaceable. There are debates about commercial fossil sales versus keeping specimens in public trust for research. Access to fossils and data is important, and collaborating respectfully with communities, especially indigenous groups, where fossils are found on their lands, is crucial. Plus, future tech like genetics raises hypothetical ethical questions down the line.
Lots to consider. The Dino Dust source also talked about the Mesozoic climate in more detail. Those big shifts must have really tested the dinosaurs.
Definitely. Long periods of warmth, hothouse Earth conditions, but also cooler phases, changes in rainfall, sea levels rising and falling as continents shifted. Dinosaurs had to adapt or perish. It drove evolution. Their ability to thrive across such diverse conditions for so long is remarkable.
Could they have influenced the climate themselves? All those giant herbivores releasing methane, for example?
It's possible. Some models suggest that methane emissions from sauropod digestion could have been a significant factor in maintaining Mesozoic warmth, though it's hard to quantify precisely. Their impact on vegetation also would have affected carbon cycles. It shows how interconnected life and the planetary system are.
And the lessons from how they coped or didn't cope with climate change back then, any relevance today?
I think so. It shows that even dominant, long-lived groups aren't immune to rapid environmental change. It highlights the importance of biodiversity for resilience. When climate shifts dramatically, some species adapt, some move, some go extinct. It's a cautionary tale from deep time about the consequences of upsetting the planetary balance.
A sobering thought. Let's circle back to the plants for a moment, that gymnosperm world eventually giving way to angiosperms.
Yeah, that transition during the Cretaceous was revolutionary. Flowering plants offered new food sources, fruits, nuts, maybe more easily digestible leaves, and likely supported a greater diversity of smaller herbivores, insects, and eventually mammals and birds. It reshaped terrestrial ecosystems.
And that back and forth between plants evolving defenses and herbivores evolving ways to eat them.
Classic coevolution.
Yeah.
Plants get tougher or toxic.
Yeah.
Herbivores evolve stronger jaws, better digestive systems, or detoxifying enzymes. It drives diversification on both sides.
We also touched on mythological interpretations. It's fascinating how fossils were explained before science.
Right. Griffin legends might come from Protoceratops, fossils found near gold mines in Central Asia. Giant bones became titans or monsters. It shows a universal human need to explain the extraordinary using the cultural tools available at the time.
And paleontology provides the scientific explanation now, sometimes debunking those old myths.
Exactly. It replaces myth with evidence-based understanding, revealing an arguably even more wondrous real history.
There were even hints in the source about possible very ancient encounters, maybe in folklore, before we understood extinction.
Yeah, some interpretations of ancient texts or legends speculate about possible references to large, unfamiliar creatures or bones, but it's usually very ambiguous and mixed with mythology. It reflects that long-standing human awareness of traces of a different past.
So, looking back at their whole story's survival for 160 million years, then extinction, what are the really key takeaways about survival and extinction?
Adaptability is paramount. Environments change, continents drift, climates fluctuate, asteroids hit. The ability to adapt is key to long-term survival. But even the most successful can be vulnerable to truly catastrophic rapid change. And biodiversity matters. Having a wide range of species increases the chance that something will survive a crisis.
And the aftermath of their extinction shows how ecosystems can reorganize, right? Mammals stepping up.
Precisely. Extinction isn't just an end, it's also a beginning. It clears ecological space, allowing other groups to radiate and diversify. The Cenozoic era, the age of mammals, happened because the non-avian dinosaurs disappeared. It shows the resilience and dynamism of life.
So, adaptability, biodiversity, but also vulnerability. Key lessons. The Dino Dust video mentions some rarer, weirder dinosaurs too. Any favorites?
Oh, there are so many cool ones. Therizinosaurus is bizarre, a theropod, related to carnivores, but likely herbivorous, with these enormous 3-foot-long claws on its hands. What were they
Yeah.
for? Defense. Pulling down branches. We're still figuring it out.
Giant claws for eating leaves. Strange.
Or Deinocheirus, another giant theropod known for decades only from its huge arms, now revealed to be this strange, humpbacked, possibly omnivorous creature with a duck-like bill. Or tiny dinosaurs like Microraptor with feathers on its arms and legs, 4 wings.
4 wings! The diversity is just wild. Are there specific fossil sites known for preserving these unusual details?
Yes, sites called Lagerstätten storage places in German. These have exceptional preservation, sometimes trapping animals in low-oxygen environments like lake bottoms or lagoons,
Hmm.
preserving soft tissues like feathers, skin, even gut contents. Sites in China, like Liaoning or Solnhofen in Germany, where Archaeopteryx was found, are famous examples. They give us incredible snapshots.
Like high-definition views of the past, and these discoveries keep shaking up the family tree.
Constantly. New finds can reveal unexpected relationships, show features we didn't expect in certain groups, like feathers appearing much earlier or more widely than thought. It forces us to redraw the evolutionary tree sometimes.
What about migration influencing genetics? Did moving around help them stay diverse?
Makes sense, doesn't it? If populations could move and interbreed across large areas, it would maintain gene flow, preventing populations from becoming too isolated and inbred, and spreading beneficial mutations. Continental drift and changing climates would have opened and closed migration routes over millions of years, impacting that genetic mixing.
And paleogenomics, using ancient proteins or DNA, is that helping sort out the family tree too?
That's the hope. While DNA is unlikely for dinosaurs, ancient proteins, if reliably recovered, could provide molecular data to compare species, potentially resolving relationships that are ambiguous based on bones alone. It's a new frontier, adding another layer of evidence.
Which makes you wonder, if they hadn't gone extinct, what would dinosaurs be like today? Pure speculation, but fun to think about.
Pure speculation, yeah.
All right.
Would some lineages have developed greater intelligence? Would feathered dinosaurs have diversified even more? Would new forms have evolved to cope with cooling climates and the rise of grasslands? Maybe tool use? Sentience, who knows? It's a fascinating what if.
A completely different world. Okay, let's try and wrap up this amazing journey. Reflecting on this deep dive, the sheer scale, the weirdness, the wonder of the dinosaur era. It's just immense.
It really is. And what stands out is just how dynamic life is.
Mhm.
Evolution constantly experimenting, environments constantly changing, connections between climate, geology, and life. And the fact that we can uncover this story millions of years later is incredible in itself. Our understanding is always evolving too.
Absolutely. The key takeaways for me are that constant change, the impact of big environmental shifts, how interconnected everything was and still is, and that science keeps revealing new chapters.
Well said. It's a story of incredible success,